Page 2149.
We're on 2145.
Okay. We're up to in the Maimer, the 12th of Tammuz, 5744. It's 1984. Page 2949. Oh, of course, here. Okay, okay. But he's here. We're up to the second half of the page, the bottom half of the page, discussing the descent of the neshama in this physical world, what it came down for, what's the purpose of its coming down. It's an inyan of a yerida, descent, and it's described to as a yerida, as a descent me'igra roma lebira mikta, from a high roof to a deep ditch, which is from both extremes, from a high roof, not just the ordinary roof, and from a deep ditch, which is also a ditch which is gor deep. So the Rebbe begins explaining. Umevayir bazeh. This is about 9 lines from the bottom. It's the last word on the line is umevayir bazeh. This is based on a maimer and a Hasidic discourse that the previous Rebbe released for the day of his redemption, the 12th of Tammuz, 1949, Tafshin Tes. And the Rebbe bases the maimer, his maimer, on a part of the maimer of the previous Rebbe. So the previous Rebbe explains that neshama kedem yiridas v'slapshusa beguf nefesh hativis hi b'madrega zu sheim medes tomid ba'ava v'yira b'tachlis hadvekas v'abitl. That the neshama, before its descent and enclosure, that it encloses itself in the body, in the physical body, and also in the nefesh hativas, the natural soul, is in a level which stands always. Before it descended, it was always standing in a state of love and fear of Hashem, the Almighty, b'tachlis hadvekas v'abitl, in the ultimate connection and attachment and state of nullification, which is interesting. Over here, the lashon is nefesh hativis. In general, Bechlal, Chassidus Chabad, always is the union of Nefesh Habamis. And with this is also understood that there was one, the Friedrich Rebbe says, that there was the Bishaz Tzemach Tzedek, met the G'dei Yisrael, the Torah giants in his time, from different circles. So the Tzemach Tzedek was asked, how is it that the Alter Rebbe in Tanya constantly refers to the Nefesh Habad, the animal soul, or the secular soul, as Nefesh Habamis? The animal soul, instead of referring to it as the natural soul, which is nefesh hativis. Especially that the Rambam uses the word nefesh hativis. Really? So the Alter Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek answered, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember well, the Tzemach Tzedek said that the Alter Rebbe, my grandfather, took the soul that the world calls the natural soul and revealed in it that it's actually an animal soul. That's the Gvendavon. Then the Rebbe, so Mamela, this is the Shita. With this is understood an interesting inyan that's taking place in the Hayom Yom. In the Hayom Yom, on the 20th of Teves, the Rebbe writes, in the name of the Mittel Rebbe, that the Mittel Rebbe says when two Yidden get together, they learn together and they speak in Yoni Aveda, so then it is two Nefesh Alikis and one Nefesh Hativis. Two Nefesh Alikis on one nefesh hativis, on one natural soul. So the question is here also, why is it that that it's referred to dafke as a natural soul and not animal soul, especially that Nasidus Chabad stresses animal soul? The answer is bepashtus, because it's Chav Tevis. Chav Tevis is the yahrzeit of the Rambam. The mail of that day, being that it's a Yortzeit Rambam, the Rebbe hosts, which is mamish like a 180-degree turn, referring to the animal soul or the soul as natural soul instead of referring to it as the animal soul. And that's why in the Hayom Yom there, it's the natural soul. The quotes in the Hayom Yom, the calendar that the Rebbe compiled in 1943, are quotes from the Friedrich Rebbe's writings. When the Friedrich Rebbe wrote this saying, this quote, the Friedrich Rebbe wrote that it's two nefesh alikis on one animal soul, natural soul. Relationship, there's a comma in the minor, which means nefesh habahami hativi. Here the Rebbe chooses Dafka HaTivi and takes out the word Habami, which this was pashut obvious that something is going on here. Not the style and phrase of Chassidus Chabad. The word is that this is Chof Tevis. The outside of the Rambam constantly refers to the soul as the natural soul. Mashenken in Chassidus Chabad, there is the Nefesh Elikis, the godly soul, there's the animal soul, and in between there's a soul called the Nefesh HaSichlis, the intellectual soul, the soul that translates all the thoughts and insights of the godly soul and gives it over, relays it to the Nefesh Abamis, to the animal soul. So that's like the mediary between the godly soul and the animal soul.
This is the mediary?
The Sichlis. Yeah. I'm saying Chassidus Chabad, it's mentioned as Sichlis, the mediary. There's no more.
Is Nefesh HaTivis ever used ever again?
It is. It's used in the Mittel Rebbe uses it, which here comes in the Chagav another biur that we can also say based on what the Mittel Rebbe says. The Mittel Rebbe says that the Nefesh HaTivis is something that brings the person to be lenient in different things of Torah and Yiras Shamayim. Torah in fulfilling commandments of Torah or in Yonim of Yiras Shamayim. This is the nature of the Nefesh HaTivis.
It's more of a cleaner way.
In other words, it's the inclination of the Nefesh HaTivis to connect to natural things, to physical things, and things that are lower than the physical level. In halacha, there's halacha. We learn it at least once a year in the Rambam. For the ones that learn Perek Gimel Prakim L'Yem, that the Rambam says there are a group of halachas that refer to as chaverus. Chaverus means that a person that takes upon himself to be a Talmud Chacham, to be careful with inyanim of Tahares, with inyanim to be careful that he should be pure with certain things. If it's Truma, if it's Meiser, it's different things that he has to be careful with. So it says that after 30 days, Bishas he already learned the halachas. So after 30 days, we assume already that he's already behaving, conducting himself in an appropriate way. Yutes Teves, Chav Teves is exactly 30 days after Yutes Kislev. Comes the Rebbe and says there's Taka in Yodim of 30 days, that a person took upon himself to conduct himself in an appropriate way, but there could also be that he needs some refresher. So therefore the Rebbe brings, when two Yidden get together, this will also have an impact on the Nefesh HaTivis, which the Nefesh HaTivis is the Nefesh, the inclination to physical desires, and things that are not appropriate, which are like, a person is lenient or light lenient in his conduct in regards to certain inyanim of Torah and Yiras Shamayim. So the Mittel Rebbe mentions Nefesh HaTivis in a Maimer in regards to Torah and Yiras Shamayim, which this is basically referring, as it's reflected in Halacha, this is someone that takes upon himself, enhances his behavior, and the timeline is 30 days. After 30 days we assume that he's already trusted. The Rebbe comes after the 30 days and says that it could be Sitzach Nachoprayim or whatever, something could take place. So therefore, he needs a refresher with sitting with a Chaver together. Because a Chaver is in of Divrei Chaverus. It says learning together that another person they should learn together. Okay, so this is all the first line. So now we're starting where we left off last week. We left off last week again. 9. This is page 2149. 9. So don't noch.
No, this is a higher.
9 lines from the bottom and begins with the ends of the word the Mevayir. So the Friedrich Rebbe explains the Mevayir bazeh da neshama ke dem yiridas bislapshus beguf nefesh hativis he b'madrege zu shemedes tamid ba'ava v'yira. The neshama before her descent and enclosure in the body and the natural soul, it refines itself in a level that it's constantly ba'ava v'yira and love and fear of Hashem b'tachos hadveikus. Tachos hadveikus. Kann sich setzen. the tachas hat dveikos vat beetle, this is saying of dveikos that it's attached in the ultimate way, va beetle in a way of beetle, which is the